Today, we're making a sweet Kewpie doll for our Valentine's decor. I'll show you how easy it is. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. For the first part, we're going to start off with some Model Magic clay, a 2.4 and a 2.9 foam ball. I got mine at Dollar Tree, some acrylic paint to mix with the clay, a toothpick or skewer. This stuff is going to get us going. So we got a lot to do. Let's get into it. We're going to create flat spots on the top and bottom of the larger ball by tapping or pressing it on the table just to make that wee indent there. This will keep it from rolling about as we work on it. Now the smaller ball is only going to need one flat spot so that we can stack it on top of the larger ball. I grabbed a handful of clay. I'll be adding some Ceramcoat watermelon to it. I wanted to match this wee bit that I had left over from another project. This is from some of my Christmas projects. So all I'm going to do is pour the paint onto my clay and knead it to both mix the color and condition the clay. So just so you know, this is a bit messy, but I gotta tell you, it's a lot of fun. I do enjoy it. Okay, so we're just going to knead that color right into the clay, and we're going to keep going until it's completely incorporated. It'll take a couple minutes. Once I incorporate the paint with the fresh clay, I'm going to add the old red clay to it too. And again, just kneading it. I want to mention as well that your clay is going to be slightly lighter than your paint color, so you want to keep that in mind. And you'll work the clay for a few minutes until the color is completely integrated. Doesn't take long. The clay will be a bit stickier than before, but if you let it rest about 10 minutes or so, it'll settle a bit and be less sticky. I'll also add some Ceramcoat Tawny to make some Tawny clay, and I do make some Tropic Bay Blue too, but I wound up not using that. You know, that's okay, I'll have it for other projects. And again, we're just going to repeat the process, adding the paint, and I have a little bit of the Tawny left over from a Christmas project. I'll add that in just like I did with the red. So as I mentioned, I let this clay sit for about 10-15 minutes, and now I'm going to roll it out and cover the small ball with it. I cut away the excess, and I'm going to add that where there's any gaps. I roll it around on the table to smooth it out. As you can see from this picture, which I'm using as a reference, Kewpies have a wee pointy tuft of hair at the top of their head and a curl on their forehead. There are also wee tufts on the side where the ears would be. To make the wee tufty for the top of her head, I roll some Tawny clay into a cone shape, and I pinch a wee bit out and kind of pull it out a wee bit to create the curly Q in the front. That'll drape down her forehead a wee bit. And we're going to place this top center of her head. And once I get it on there, I'll kind of fuss with the curls, you know, until I'm happy with it. I grab a wee bit more Tawny clay, rolled into a smaller cone, kind of like chocolate chips. So, about that size. We're going to push them right about where her ears would go, and we'll incorporate them just a wee smidge. I'm kind of rolling over the seams, you know, to smooth them and make them a little less evident. I roll a small ball and cut it in half. Then I'm going to roll two smaller balls from each half to make her cheeks. I'll flatten them as I press them into place. I don't want them to protrude too much. I just want a small raise there. And again, I'm going to roll over the seams to incorporate it. Right, there we go. I think that's pretty good. Let's move on to her nose. We'll roll a teeny weeny ball for her nose, and we're going to flatten that as well when we stick it on her face. Again, I just want, you know, small little teeny tiny nose right there between her cheeks. And now we can set this aside to dry overnight. Okay, let's work on her body. This is super easy, no fuss, no muss. We'll roll out the red clay, and cover the larger ball. We're going to do this the exact same way we did her head. I'm just going to cut off any excess clay, and I'll fill in any gaps with it afterwards. I just want to make sure that I press the clay, nice and firmly so that it sticks to my styrofoam. And we're going to roll it about on the table to smooth it just like we did before. We're keeping this design really simple and easy. Anyone can do this. Right, now that that's covered, we're going to set that aside to dry overnight too. Now that our pieces are dry, we can get to embellishing. Let's start by adding her eyes. I'll use the dowel end of a sponge dauber to dot the whites of her eyes. I'm going to go right above her cheek, just dot them right in there. And I'm going to flatten the bottom of her eye by pulling a detail brush across it, just so that the bottom's not so round. You feel me? And we're going to repeat that on the other eye. Using a paintbrush handle, we're going to add a smaller Hippo Grey dot for her irises. And I'm kind of going to the right of her eye, so she's side-eyeing. And again, I'm using that picture that I showed you as a reference. Using my finest detail brush here and raw sienna, I'm going to outline her eyes. This is really just to give me the shape. I'll be going back over these shortly with some Hippo Grey to give them more definition. I'm going to add her eyebrows and also her mouth with the raw sienna before I go over them with the hippo as well. She'll get that classic Kewpie smile. So cute. Let's give her a wee chin too. There we go. I'm pulling out my Folk Art floating medium here. I want to make the raw sienna paint just a little translucent because I'm going to add a little bit of a shade to the top of her nose with this. So I dip my brush into medium first, then pull on some of that paint, kind of mix it together, and just ever so slightly go across the top of her nose. Just a simple arched stroke. See? Very subtle. I'll pick up some of that Hippo Grey onto my detail brush, and now I'm going to outline the eyes again. Just go right around, follow the line I already laid with the raw sienna. She needs a lot of lashes. So I'm referencing my picture again to see where I should put them. Let's add some longer ones here at the corner of her eyes. And now we're going to go back over her eyebrows and her mouth with the Hippo Grey. Her eyes get white dot highlights. I'm using a stylus, but a toothpick would work just as well. I'm loading a brush with some Sunkissed Coral, and then I'm offloading most of the paint onto a paper towel to dry brush her cheeks to give her that classic Kewpie blush. I start really softly, and I build the color in layers until I'm happy with the depth of it. Yep, I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to repeat that on the other cheek, and maybe a wee bit on her nose too. I'll add more paint to my brush and offload it onto the paper towel as needed. Yeah, let's do a little on her nose and a little on her chin as well. I think I'm going to add some here by her hairline too, on the wee tufts on the side of her head and also along the top, just a wee bit. To give her hair that baby fine look, I'm going to come in with some maple sugar tan, and I'm going to mix that, kind of soften it by blending in some of the floating medium. So I'll prep my brush with the floating medium first, and then I'll pull out some of that maple sugar tan. This again gives more of a translucent look, kind of watercolory to the paint. So now I'm just going to paint right over her tufts of hair. And again, I'm going to start off soft. I can always add more color as needed. Now, as you can see, or maybe not see, the color is very similar to the Tawny, so it does kind of make it hard to see it while it's wet, especially on camera. But we want that subtle look because baby hair is usually really fine, and generally the classic Kewpie has just a subtle color to their hair. You know what I'm saying? Now we'll do the tufts on the side of her head. I'm going to grab my detail brush and this time just use the maple sugar tan at full color, full depth, and just add some lines, to make some definition to the hair. Just going to pull them straight down, just here and there. And we'll do some on the side tufts too. To add more definition, I'm going to dry brush around her hairline with some raw sienna. Might add some to her cheeks and her nose too. And I'm going to go around the bottom here. This is where her head's going to meet her body, so there would be a shadow there. So let's add some here. And now we're going to add some white dot highlights to her cheeks. Okay, we can set her aside for a moment. Let's work on her body. So as I mentioned, I want to keep this really simple. So all I'm going to do here is I am going to outline a heart in Tropic Bay Blue on the center of her body, and then I'm going to come in and fill it in with 2 coats. If you're not comfortable freehanding this, you can always use, a stencil, a stamp, a sticker, whatever you're comfortable with. To embellish the heart a wee bit more, I'm using a paintbrush handle and I'm just going to dip dot with Velvet Teal right around the outline of that heart. We're going to add some shading around the heart. I'm using Americana Napa Red for this. It's kind of a maroony color. Yeah, I guess maroon. Anyway, we're just going to dry brush right around that heart just to give it a little bit of definition. I cut a vinyl 14 from some red vinyl. I'm just going to add that right in the center here. You can, again, use a stamp or stickers, paint it in, draw it in, whatever blows your hair back and is easy for you. So I'm just going to burnish this on. I cut the 14 with my silhouette. Yeah, there we go. I think that looks cute. I add a drop shadow to the 14 with some of that Velvet Teal. I'm going to just kind of outline my number 1 on the left side with the Velvet Teal, and we'll do the same on the number 4. We're just keeping that outline to the left of the number. Adding a drop shadow to the number, I feel like it really adds a little extra something to it, makes it less flat looking and a little bit more professional, I think. I feel. What do you think? Now we're going to come down the right side of the numbers with white to add a highlight. So it's the exact same process, just on the opposite side of the number. And I'm keeping that line really nice and thin. Makes a difference, right? Let's add some white dots to those velvet teal dots that we added around the heart. Again, just a wee bit more embellishment. I'm going to add a couple of, let's see, 3 red dots up here and maybe 3 down at the bottom. I'm going to use my DecoArt multi-purpose sealer. This has got a satin finish. I'm going to apply it with a cosmetic sponge. Just going to pounce it right on top of those 2 pieces. This will not only give it a finished look, but it's going to protect it too. I really like this sealer. It dries really quickly. And like I said, it gives it a nice finished look. We're going to need to add some glitter. You know what I'm saying? So I'm dipping the end of my paintbrush handle into some of that sealer. I'm going to dot it around those, well, kind of on top of the white dots around the heart, and sprinkle on some Glamour dust. Once I get it completely glittered, I'm going to hit that with a slightly satin gloss spray sealer, just to keep the glitter from shedding. The pieces are sealed, so now we're going to want to assemble them. But before I do that, I was digging through my stash, and luckily for me, I found an already made rosette from Crepe paper. So I have another video, an embellishment video, shows you how to make this. So I'll link that for you. It's this one up here. You'll see it up here in the corner. And all I did was added some snowy glitter around the edge of it. I did that with Mod Podge and just sprinkled the glitter on. So I'm going to place this right where it's going to go, and I'm going to take a toothpick and poke it through that hole to mark the spot, basically. I removed the rosette, and I'm going to add some fabric glue along here. I'll add the rosette back on. Now I'm going to push her head onto the toothpick. Again, this is just to mark the place. And now we're going to add some glue and pop the head back on. One final embellishment, I'm going to add a little heart bead right to the center of her tufty hair, just for kicks. And that's it. Our Kewpie doll is done. I mean, come on guys, how easy was this? Anybody can do this. I promise you, you can do this. Let's take a final look. I think she turned out really cute. I love Kewpie dolls. I had a Kewpie doll, baby doll when I was little, really little, in a red velvet dress. Just loved her, she was gorgeous. And I think Kewpie dolls really represent Valentine's Day, don't you? Let me know what you think. I hope you liked today's project. I really enjoyed making this for you guys. And let me know if you give this a try, because I promise you guys, you can do this. Next week, I'll be back with some of my buddies for more Valentine's fun. So please check back. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.